Super excited to be here. I feel like this is like the kind of sort of spiritual home of Gatsby, because Gatsby, Jay Gatsby, he lived out his brief kind of glorious days here in New York City, Long Island. So, Jason gave a great intro to Gatsby. I wanted to kind of step up a few levels and just kind of like put Gatsby in kind of the wider context of what's happening with kind of like software and technology in general. So we're going to talk about the cloud. First, what is the state of website building before we get there? So monolithic CMSs often cost a lot. They have security problems. They have high maintenance costs, e.g. frequent security updates. If you're trying to build cutting edge front ends, they're kind of templatey and like poor integration with JavaScript stuff, NPM, etc. Get in your way. It's often increasingly difficult to hire experienced people with a lot of CMSs. And also websites tend to be slow by default instead of fast, which seems opposite. And this is terrible because there are probably sites that you wish you could build that you just don't have the time or budget to do. And the sites that you do build, you're probably often thinking, I could do a lot better than this, but I'm kind of like running into limitations of my tools. Also just too much money, both development time, hosting, etc. And a lot of people new to web development, they're just like looking at like this giant stack of things that they have to learn, and it feels like a lot. Before we get to how we're gonna fix that, we'll talk about a short history of computing. So back in the 40s, good old days, I think this is so wild. Like the early computers, like there was no software, there was no like fixed circuits or anything. Like you programmed the computer by like changing how the circuits like worked, which is wild. You just go in and like change a whole bunch of wires around, and then it would sometimes run. Actually, the original, well, this is not entirely confirmed, but the word bug came from a bug being in one of these, systems, a literal bug, and they like, why isn't this program running? And then they looked through everything and they found a bug that was like had died or something, and it was messing with one of the circuits. So that's why we call them bugs. Anyways, then 60s we had the mainframes, which were like sweet. They look cool. They're very expensive. Personal computers came in the 80s, the IBM PC spec. 2000s we got smartphones. But also 2000s, we got some other stuff. We got software as a service, which was like wild idea that you didn't have to like download software. You could just, somebody would just sort of serve it to you over the web. Businesses went crazy because they're like, wow, this is so much easier. We don't have to like install it on our servers and maintain it and all that jazz. Businesses loved it too because you do recurring revenue. It's nice. Also 2000s came cloud computing. So S3, EC2, etc. from Amazon Web Services, and then all the others jumped in the game. And then 2010s, we got Lambda, which is like compute on demand. So kind of the progression of all this is that computing is becoming like electricity. We don't think about electricity because for many generations now, like it just sort of happens. Like there's little walls, sockets, and you just stick in an application, you stick in something, and it just works. And so computing is kind of going the same way, that we can write software and just sort of like plug it into cloud computing, and it just starts working. And in order for that to happen, the nature of software is changing to adapt to work on kind of cloud primitives. So it's moving from, like download software, run it, set up database, et cetera, to like drop in software. It just like hooks up to different APIs and starts running. And kind of the general term for software, which is native to the cloud, is like cloud native software. There's a cloud native foundation, which a lot of the big players have created to kind of shepherd a lot of standard kind of infrastructure bits of software, like Kubernetes. And they define cloud-native technologies as those that empower organizations to build and run scalable applications in modern dynamic environments such as public, private, and hybrid clouds. Containers, service meshes, microservices, immutable infrastructure, declarative APIs exemplify this approach. These techniques enable, the money slide, these techniques enable loosely coupled systems that are resilient, manageable, and observable. Combined with robust automation, they allow engineers to make high-impact changes frequently and predictably with minimal toil. So a lot of software has been moving to be like quote-unquote cloud native. The question though is like, what is that equivalent for, what we work with, like kind of web frameworks and CMSs and that sort of stuff. Like, because downloading a CMS and installing it somewhere is not cloud native in the sense that, it's loosely coupled, resilient, built on, public-private hybrid clouds, et cetera, et cetera. So kind of there's two big questions is like, because all software is moving to be cloud native, and so like what is web software of the future going to look like, and also is Gatsby one, and how are we kind of thinking about stuff in this frame? So look at a few of these things from the definition. Is Gatsby site scalable? And I'd say yes, because you can like have a Gatsby site that like 10 people visit a day or millions of people visit a day, and it works exactly the same. And so this is a common property of cloud native software, that you don't have to do weird things to scale it. So if you're using like a Lambda function, and you have 1 million invocations or 10 invocations, it's like the same code. If you're using like an S3 bucket, it's like an infinite hard drive. You can like put 10 million files there or 2 files, and you don't have to change anything. And so this is like also a really nice property of Gatsby. You do the same thing. So loosely coupled. So Jason talked a lot about the content mesh, and this is another property of cloud native software, is that it's like easily, you can have these different pieces which like come together. And so Gatsby is designed so that any number of specialized content systems can be plugged into a Gatsby site. That's odd. Oh wait, no, it's not so odd. Okay, so resilient. So with Gatsby, you have immutable deploys, which you can like roll back if there's an error. It's blazing fast, so even if the network is poor, it has a lot of kind of logic in the Gatsby runtime in order to enable like prefetching and so forth. And so I think Linda, when she first joined, she was like, I was on the airplane and no other site was loading, but this like Gatsby site was still like, I could still browse around, because we do a lot of prefetching and other stuff. So that kind of like hides really bad network performance. It's also secure, as there's no running server software. So Gatsby is resilient against a lot of stuff. Productive. So cloud software enables developers to be very productive, because you're just like describing how the software should work. You don't need to have like complex stacks running your computer and database migrations and all that crap. So Gatsby lets engineers and designers make frequent high-impact changes due to automatic continuous deployment. So stuff like Netlify and other services like that, everything's completely automatic. So you push code, you change data, rebuilds and redeploys the site. It's very productive. High-quality testing tools. So Gatsby inherits from like a ton of work being done in the front-end space to actually have a richly tested site, so that you can push changes and be very confident that your site is not going to break in unexpected ways. Great development environment, and React and GraphQL also aid a lot in like helping you make changes very quickly and be very confident that you know what the effect of your changes. So I would say Gatsby is a cloud native web framework, and though it's not, so Gatsby by itself is not like a complete cloud native web framework. It's kind of like it's one piece of kind of a developing framework that working along with content stores, CDNs, other cloud services form like a complete product that you can use to build stuff. So I made up an ungainly acronym, CNWS. Anyways, and so yeah, there's a lot of other people working in this space. So this is one like map of the ecosystem that somebody put together. A lot of logos there. And so another property of cloud native software is that people tend to enjoy using it a lot more than previous generations of software. So we hear people tell us all the time that they can build a Gatsby website twice as fast as with other systems, and of course they're all blazing fast. So we expect that over the next 5 to 10 years, the vast majority of websites in the world are going to migrate to a cloud-native web framework like Gatsby. Yeah, and so our goal as a company is to kind of help enable this, because Gatsby, there's a lot of things that need to happen in order for everyone to be able to completely switch over. And I'll be talking more about some stuff that we're working on to make this possible. So cool. So quick overview of the state of Gatsby. We're up to 1,941 contributors to the open source project. I'm sure many of you here have helped out, and we really appreciate that. And 833 plugins. There's now tens of thousands of production sites. Just kind of measures of top 10,000. We're almost to 1% of those, and 0.1% of the top million. So making significant inroads there. We recently added telemetry, so this isn't a precise number, but around 15,000 people, monthly active users, Gatsby, and close to 1 million downloads a month. And the open source repo is very active, 100 merge PRs per week, 34,000 GitHub stars. And a lot of sites that you've seen use Gatsby, including React, Flamingo, which we're going to have a case study here later on. IDEO, the kind of design agency, recently switched their site over. Impossible Burgers, which is currently struggling to keep up with demand for their burgers. Burger King recently started launching a Whopper made from their stuff, which is cool. Yeah, and the recent New York City Pride site, which is awesome design. I was building Gatsby. Yeah, so Gatsby Inc., we're investing heavily to make Gatsby better. So we have 6 full-time people working on the open source project, and 3 part-time. We have 3 full-time on themes and related tooling, 2 full-time designers, and 2 full-time DevRels. And we're aiming to be the single best presentation layer for cloud-native websites. So a few things that we're working on. So Gatsby Preview, some you might have heard of, and this is our first offering as part of the Gatsby Cloud. And we'll be doing demos today if you'd like to take a look at that. And I'll do a live demo in a second too. But we're in closed beta right now, but we'd be happy to give you an invite to give it a go. Yeah, and Preview is a really revolutionary feature. And the reason is that when you're building a website, there's developers, there's a lot of personas, people who are working on stuff. So there's developers, there's designers, and important part of this is people who are actually adding and maintaining the content. And Preview is designed to give them an amazing experience in this kind of new world of cloud-native websites. And we initially added support for Contentful. Also happy to announce that Sanity.io is now supported on the platform. So yeah. Yeah, and so there's lots of headless CMSs, a lot of open source CMSs that we'll be adding support for. And so as we kind of come out of closed beta into GA, that'll be a top focus is just adding support for more and more CMSs. Also, if any of you are Drupal users, Third and Grove up here in the front, they've been working on a Drupal module to also support Drupal and Gatsby Preview, which would be really cool. So I have a quick demo. So this is Sanity's. So here on the left is actually wait. I'll show you the dashboard real quick. So if we go dashboard. So yeah. So if you go to the dashboard, the Gatsby dashboard, you can see different. You can create sites, and then you can see different preview instances that you've created, and then you can just open that up. And then over here on the right is the Sanity content editor. And let's try editing stuff. So this here is being displayed up there on the top. So I'll just say it's very cool, and then it updates. And then I say plus is kind of ungainly, so I'll do a slash. Actually, no, wait, we'll do a pipe. Pipes are cool. And then we have latest projects, which is give Gatsby Day talk. So we'll go to projects, that, give amazing. And then let's add, it doesn't have an image yet, so let's try uploading an image. The Wi-Fi is hopefully very happy. Boom. Okay. We can like tweak this a little bit. Did that work? I don't know how to do that. I've never done this before, so I'm not sure. Oh, you can. Oh, there. That's the hotspot. So I think this is cropping. That's what I wanted to do. I just set this up this morning, so it's a little new to me. Oh, okay, what's doing something? Oh, I have to like do like this. Oh, there we go. This is fun. Okay. Anyways, we'll just kind of leave it normal. Cool. We publish that. And then we go, let's see, blog post. Let's add a new blog post. Say, hello, NYC. I'll generate that. We'll actually do this for tomorrow. No, let's do this. This says yesterday for some reason. What up? And then, do I have another cool image? It's kind of dangerous to just do an image. I'll just do the same one that I did, just to be safe. I don't really know. Okay. And then we go in there, and then we'd be like, oh, we didn't see, we had an excerpt, but this is my blog post. Whatever. Okay, anyways. Demo! It works! Yeah, and thanks for Abhi. He helped me get going this morning in like 15 minutes, so that was nice. Cool.
Is that a public URL?
It is, but it's very long. If you wanted to, you can check it out later. We'll be doing demos, so you can play with this later. Okay, so cool. So asset prefix. This is something we've heard requested a ton from different, maybe more enterprisey folks. A lot of people with kind of traditional web hosting, have HTML1 server, and then all the assets go on CDN. And so Dustin from the core team spent a whole bunch of time figuring out how to make that work in Gatsby, and a lot of people have been really appreciative of that. So another thing that we've been working on is adding kind of more sophisticated GraphQL schema tooling. And so this basically gives you low-level control, if you need it, over how your GraphQL schema works. And the main upside, so this has like a lot of use cases, which I won't get into. There's a really nice blog post. But the main thing I think that a lot of you appreciate is if you've ever had seen the bug where you delete content or something and then the website suddenly breaks because the schema doesn't work anymore, like you're querying data that doesn't exist in the schema anymore. Basically what this lets you do is kind of fix the schema so it like always works instead of randomly breaking. And what's great is that a lot of CMSs can now add to their source plugin like kind of direct schema control. So anyways, so that kind of like solves a lot of issues around integration. And kind of recap of this is that before this change, the schema was only generated automatically from the data. We would take your data that came in and we would infer it to generate the schema. But this could create bugs. Anyways. Okay, so next thing is themes. So Chris Biscardi is going to be talking about this right after this talk, so I won't go into it too deep. But the short synopsis is it enables composable websites. So it's kind of like React components, that you can create a component and you can like compose them together like sibling or parent-child kind of relationships, but the same thing for entire sections of your site. So imagine if you could you have a site, a Gatsby site, you take a section of that, stick it into an NPM package, and then you can install it in any other site. And imagine then also that there's like thousands of these available for like blogs, docs, e-commerce, events page, etc. So our vision is that in the future, you're not going to be building page by page or section by section. That a lot of building a Gatsby site will just be kind of composing together different like open source or commercial or kind of like in-house themes that you've built to kind of rapidly prototype and build out your different sites. Yeah, so like WordPress themes, but a lot nicer. So design systems. Design systems are super hot right now. And we're very, very keen on them as kind of the future of how we do styles on the web. And I have kind of like, I'm not going to get into it again this much, but there's kind of a long list of stuff here that good to check out. And we have several people on the team who've done a lot of thinking and kind of innovations around this. Brent Jackson and John O'Tander and Chris Biscardi. And Jackson, I believe, is here. Oh yeah, there he is. Hey. And so anyway, so he's written a lot of these libraries that are here. So you can go chat with him if you're interested in that. But the main upside that I want to talk about right now is the question of like, how do we make themes truly reusable? So if you drop in a blog into your site, you want that blog to match your color, typography, and spacing choices. It should just look like it fits, because if it doesn't, then it's going to be this like awkward mishmash of like incompatible styles. And so theme like design systems, like all these different technologies, are what's going to enable our Gatsby themes to be truly kind of reusable and composable. Yeah, so here's some links you can check out. MDX is another thing we've been working a lot on. It's Markdown for the component era. And kind of synopsis is MDX is an authorizable format that lets you seamlessly write JSX in your Markdown documents. You can import components such as interactive charts and alerts and embed them in your content. So you kind of think of it as like short codes for Markdown, but like a lot more powerful again, because it's not just like a simple HTML replacement, but you can do like a full-on React component. Same along those lines as well, there's Blocks, which is a editor for MDX, and it lets you, kind of gives you a WYSIWYG editor for doing MDX and like editing your React components that are in the MDX. So it's like a really powerful editing environment. This is still alpha quality, but it's going to be awesome. And then kind of big one is incremental builds, which is how do we scale Gatsby to very, very large sites? And this is a hard problem. No one's ever done it before. Some people call it the holy grail of static site generators. But we're feeling really confident that we've cracked it. Like Gatsby, like when I was thinking about Gatsby, like the design of Gatsby a few years ago, I mean, this was like top of my mind, like to enable this use case. Because static sites are great, as everyone knows, but at some point, rebuilds just get too slow to support a lot of use cases. And yeah, so happy to announce that we're not launching it quite yet, but it'll be coming in a few months as part of a hosted Gatsby Builds service. We'll be adding to Gatsby Cloud, and it's going to be amazing. We've already done enough tests that we're pretty sure we can hit numbers like this. Like, well, actually do hold us to this, because we have to do this. So anyway, so yeah, so we want to support stuff like million-page sites, rebuilding in less than 30 seconds. 100-page sites should be like sub 5 seconds. Goal is to get this down to sub-second, but you have to launch. And yeah, and we'll be launching with full integration to a variety of hosting platforms like Netlify, AWS, Firebase, etc. So yeah, so cloud software, it's happening, it's everywhere, and it's just going to keep going. And invite you all to come live in the future and build your sites in Gatsby.